Today is Saturday, January 13th, 2018, and we are in Salivary and Trujillo, Peru. Once again, the ship has arranged for shuttle buses to pick us up at the docks and ferry us into town. The drop-off point is at the Plaza de Armas, where the main cathedral and city hall are located. We wandered around the plaza and spent some time in the magnificent cathedral. Pretty obvious that these South American countries love their churches since they are stunning pieces of art in every way. We bumped into an Australian couple from our ship and decided to rent a taxi with them to take us out of town to do some sightseeing. Most of the local traffic consists of these little tiny vehicles. Good luck getting Tony in one. The first stop is the Chan Chan Citadel, which is about 3 miles outside of Trujillo. It was the capital of the historical empire of the Timor from 900 to 1470. In the Timor language, Chan Chan means sun, and based on how hot it was that day, I get the name. During its heyday about 600 years ago, Chan Chan was the largest city in the Americas and the largest adobe city on Earth, and spanned about 10 square miles. 10,000 structures, some with walls 30 feet high, were woven amid a maze of passageways and streets. Palaces and temples were decorated with elaborate friezes, some of which were hundreds of feet long. Chan Chan was fabulously wealthy, although it perennially lacked water. By the 15th century, as many as 60,000 people lived in Chan Chan. The days of glory came to an end around 1470 when the Incas conquered the city and broke up the Chimu. By the time the Spanish conquistador Francisco Pizarro arrived around 1532, the city had been largely abandoned, though reports from the expedition describe walls and other architectural features adorned with precious metals. One was a doorway covered in silver that might have been worth more than $2 million today. Chan Chan was pillaged as the Spaniards formed mining companies to extract every trace of gold and silver from the city. In order to preserve the site from the weather, tent-like protective structures are being erected in various parts of the city, and some of the friezes are being hardened with a solution of distilled water and cactus juice, while others are just being photographed and recovered to protect them. Panels with pictures of the friezes that have been covered are available for the visitors to see. Our next stop was at the Juan Chacho Beach to see the famous Caballitos de Tortura, or reed boats. The name translates into English as little reed horses, probably because their strangely shaped little watercraft are ridden like horses over the crest of each wave and have been used by Peruvian fishermen for millennia. We spent an hour or so exploring the beach and the boardwalk and walking out on the pier to watch the surfers and the tourists taking rides on the reed boats before we headed back to our ship. Back at the dock, we entertained ourselves watching the crabs climb up on the rocks and observing the ships in the harbor, the little boats, and all the activity. Our quote for the day: "We travel, some of us forever, to seek other places, other people, and other souls." Anus Nin. Today is Sunday, January 14th, and we are in Callao, Peru. We are going to be bused from the dock into Lima. The ship security has advised us to not spend any time in Callao due to the high crime rate and to avoid even riding taxis in the area. So, bus into the city it is. The plan for today is to meet up with some new friends of ours, Clara and Luis, who are local to Lima. Clara was an exchange student with my sister-in-law Janice when they were in high school years ago. Clara and Louise met us at the bus drop-off point, and we decided to take some Ubers around the city to see the sights. First stop was at Kennedy Park, which is full of stray cats and lots of local vendors. I purchased a little 5 by 7 inch oil painting for about $5. Next, we decided to visit the main square in the heart of downtown. We saw the Government Palace, the Town Hall, the Bishop's Palace, the Cathedral of Lima, and also went inside the church and the Convent of San Francisco, which is considered to be the most important religious monument of Lima. Today was Sunday, so the locals were not at work. And I don't know if there was a special religious celebration or what, but there sure seemed to be a big party going on downtown. There were stages out where there was live music, there were horse-drawn carriages wandering around, there was people blowing bubbles and laughing and singing, just one big celebration. One of the things that really fascinated me about Lima was the beautiful scroll work over the windows and their fancy doors. After lunch, we headed out of town to go to San Isidro, which is a modern district of town, and then on to Miraflores, where our bus will pick us up to go back to the ship. Along the way, we passed the big soccer stadium in town, which is one of the important sites since soccer is the big deal in South America. San Isidro is one of the main financial districts of the city and is very modern. We stopped in a park there to check out the sights, and from that park we could view the slums of the city. Rich on one side, poor on the other. Next we headed back to Miraflores, which is kind of like the Door County of Peru. Lots of street art, vendors, a big long beach, and here we found our second Peruvian geocache. After saying goodbye to our new friends Clara and Louise, we headed back to the ship where we kicked back and relaxed. quote of the day: "Travel in the younger sort is a part of education, in the elder a part of experience." Francis Bacon. Today we're docked in General San Martin, Peru. It is Tuesday, January 16th. This is a tiny little town on the coast, and since we felt relatively safe, we decided that we would go out on the dock and see what kind of adventures we could do on our own. One of the things that we had looked at as a shipboard option was a trip out to the Ballesteros Islands to see the birds, and that cost $164.95 per person. And once we got out on the shore, we found a local group offering the same tour for $20 a person. Well done, thrifty trotters. We boarded our motorboat and headed out of the harbor, going right by the Princeton Dam that was docked nearby.
Another question?
We go swimming here?
Maybe not, because the sharks like the white meat from the tourists.
On the way out to the islands, we went by the Paracas Candelabra, which is also called the Candelabra of the Andes. It's a well-known prehistoric geoglyph that's found on the northern face of the Paracas Peninsula of the Pisco Bay. The design is cut 2 feet into the soil and is about 595 feet tall and is large enough to be seen from 12 miles out at sea. Although the exact age of the candelabra is unknown, archaeologists have found pottery around the site dating back to around 200 BC. This pottery is likely belonged to the Paracas people, although whether they were involved in the creation of the geoglyph isn't known. The reason for the candelabra is also unknown, although it is most likely a representation of the trident, which is a lightning rod of the god Viracocha, who is seen in mythology throughout South America. It's also been suggested that the candelabra was built as a sign to sailors, or even as a symbolic representation of a hallucinogenic plant called ginseng weed. After viewing the candelabra, we headed back on out to the Ballesteros Islands. These islands are a main refuge for large populations of seabirds and seals and other marine animals. During the 19th century, it was discovered that guano could be a great source for fertilizer. So the guano produced on these islands started to be mined heavily and became known as white gold from Peru. Harvesting the guano is very smelly, difficult, and dangerous work, and it's always been hard to get labor. So for years, slaves were imported to harvest the guano, as well as the use of convicted prisoners. In recent years, the Peruvian government has taken over the control of the harvesting of the guano on the islands. The guano harvesting is now done every 7 years to protect the ecosystem of the islands, and it is still done by the convicted prisoners. The primary guano-producing birds are the Peruvian pelican, the Guanare cormorant, and the Peruvian booby. The average population of the seabirds currently is about 4.2 million, which is down from historic levels of 53 million in the late 19th century. Other inhabitants of the islands are the blue-footed boobies, red-legged cormorants, Inca terns, kelp gull, band-tailed gull, Franklin gull, and gray gull, as well as Humboldt penguins and other marine life such as the South American sea lion, the marine otter, and occasionally whales, dolphins, and sea turtles. After viewing the islands, we headed back to shore, where I did some shopping in the little vendor huts and bought this fabulous new hat for $5. And the quote for the day: "Fill your life with adventures, not things. Have stories to tell, not stuff to show." Anonymous.